Hi, Steve Stahlberg here with monthly painting video number 84, made in Kuala Lumpur, December 2020. This month, the painting for the video is a little medieval fantasy kingdom thingy with a queen and a dancing girl performing for her. A bit more complex than usual, so the video is a bit longer. This is the photo that started it all. I came across while Googling something else, random stuff, and it started the idea for a sketch. Let's see if yeah, this is a sketch, detailed sketch, that took me a couple of months to do. Lots of trial and error and starting over with poses, etc. So obviously I can't record all of that process, but I'll be using it here as a reference for this painting, like this, and I'm going to work it a little bit differently uh, than usual. I'm using brushstrokes. And in the beginning there you saw, if you go back and go frame by frame, maybe you can see the shape of the brush I'm using. It's just spots, just a bunch of irregular dots in an oval shape with pressure sensitivity for opacity, but not for the size. I don't want to start from white, so I'm using a gray, medium gray background, roughing in blocky shapes of the characters with a lighter color, and some other forms with darker colors here, as you can see. I'm working in grayscale because it's easier to add all the colors later once I'm happy with the tones, proportions, poses, etc. Except this one red color that you'll see in a wine bottle or a wine decanter, which you'll see in a moment. Now, you will see I will change her pose, the dancer's pose slightly. I will lift her left leg up, but that's going to happen, much later after I pretty much finished everything. I mean, it's going to look finished from a distance anyway. No, not all the detailing wasn't done yet at that time. I wasn't completely done with the picture at that time, but I was nearly done. So there you see a bottle of wine. That's the king or the queen. Sorry, he's the king in this. This is the guy, but I changed it to a queen. Uh, Obviously, I don't know. I didn't feel like painting this ugly guy for a couple of weeks. Working. When this takes a lot of work, and I just feel better doing stuff that makes me feel good while I'm working on it. It's just I'm just doing this to please myself, really. Um, I mean that's basically what art is. I mean you have to please yourself first, and then you of course you can try to think a little bit about what other people are gonna appreciate, but you can sort of uh, deflect yourself slightly a little bit this way that way, but basically the original impetus for anything, it has to come from inside you. You have to feel it. Otherwise it's just going to be dead. So here I'm detailing. After a while, after the initial very very fast stage, you can call it, you zoom in gradually using a smaller brush. You get gradually closer and closer and smaller, so everything starts to slow down more and more after the initial first few minutes or hour or so. And I'm adding detail to the throne here, still using that reference. And this is just intermediate detail too. I'm gonna get much more into detail later, but again, some larger brushstrokes on top of this, on top of the smaller ones. There, you can see it's. I mean, it's self-explanatory, right? You can see what I'm doing here. It's very simple. I use very simple brushes. Just scribbling. Here in the close-up, you can see the horrible look of the original brushstrokes, which will later be covered. Here now I'm starting to detail out the face of the dancer here. And this is where you really need the reference. And in my case, the reference is the sketch that I showed you earlier. I don't know if you object to me using the word sketch. It's not a sketchy sketch. It's a detailed sketch, but I can't call it the finished work because it's just a preliminary. Basically, I'm using it as a color sketch and everything sketch, shape sketch, compositional pose. I'm working all the problems out in that one, and then I use it to just redraw everything so that I get these more fresh sort of brushstrokes. And also, as I'm repainting the whole thing from scratch, it becomes better. I could I can see that it improves the second time I'm painting it. I actually didn't paint it the first time. It's a photo bash, but as I'm painting it using that photo bash sketch, detailed sketch as a reference onto the side, it's sort of like how painters would paint from a model, from a live model. But I don't have a live model. I can't afford one. I did once, I have been known to pay models to and photograph, but that was many, many years ago, and I don't have the financial wherewithal to do anything like that nowadays. So I just do what I can, And now I'm detailing the face of the queen here, as you can see. And again, as you can see, smaller brush. It's the same brush, just smaller. The very, very first brush was that rough sort of brush with the dots on it. But then here you can see, and here and here and here. Here you can see I've used a hard edged, just the simplest brush possible, the round hard edge brush, not uh, not with a lot of opacity, but just very thinly, like thin washes, like you would use watercolor. And right now I'm also using the same brush, but just a little bit thicker, more like you'd use a pencil. It's the same brush, just pressing a bit harder. That's what I like about this particular kind of brush. It's very flexible because it's so simple. It's very flexible, and you can use it in many different ways. So if it's huge and I don't press very hard, and there you can see the fade action that I use a lot. Um, and also the smudge action here, right here, I'm smudging, right? So I use that simple hard edge brush and then I smudge right there, you see on the neck there. And another thing I do is sometimes I put down a very heavy stroke, just a single stroke, very heavy, and then I use the fade function that you just saw there, and you'll probably see it again. It comes up a lot. I use that technique a lot. That becomes like a wash, like a watercolor wash, a big heavy stroke across a surface, and then I can sort of fade it in and out with a slider. To me, that's very, very handy. I just love working that way. But right here, I'm not doing that. Right here, I'm just sort of filling in areas really quickly with certain tones. Kind of using it like a colored pencil right now. That same kind of brush. Or not just that same kind of brush, that exact same brush. And here I'm changing the pose like I was, going on about earlier. You can see I just added another layer there and just made a new leg, basically. This one I didn't have reference for, so I'm just making this up as I go along. And pretty soon you will see me starting to create more layers. So I'm going to start cutting out parts of this and making new layers for those parts and naming them appropriately. So I'll be making a layer for wine, the wine bottle. I'll be making one layer for the queen, one layer for the dancer, and a few more layers. There's going to be a layer for an alternate hand and stuff like that. But right here, I'm starting with the wine bottle or the decanter or whatever you want to call it, the flask, the vase, the thingamajigger that holds something to drink. And I'm just selecting, lasso selecting, which is another technique I use a lot. And you'll see me make a little copy-paste flip soon, a mirror flip, just for this bottom part here. Yeah, copy-paste, mirror flip, just to make sure that the bottom part is symmetrical, because I have a big problem being able to keep things symmetrical that are supposed to be symmetrical when I draw them in perspective. So to me that's very tricky. Faces as well, but especially bottles and vases and architectural things like this. So you can call that cheating if you like, but you know, whatever works. Now let's see, I'm checking my notes here. I haven't started the separating yet, but you're gonna see I never use adjustment layers or layer masks, and I say that a lot. I say that in pretty much every video. I don't like them. I prefer WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get in my layer stack on the right here. I want to, what you see is what you get. I want to be able to instantly know, and I also want to be able to have a very small stack. You know, I don't want to have to scroll in the stack to find stuff. So I need to keep my stack, which is easy for this painting, but when I'm doing a comic, like I have a graphic novel I'm working on, for the graphic novel sometimes the stack gets out a little bit outside the window, but I really try hard to not have to scroll the stack. I really hate that, searching for stuff. And that's also why I'm going to be naming everything here very quickly. As soon as I make something, I'm going to name it and try to keep that name without losing that name. You know, I just find it very hard to work freely and creatively, and to have my creative freedom, and to have my how shall I say, my full freedom or artistic freedom to come out if I have other things that are hampering my thinking. You know, I need to be able to think about the art part, not the technical part, the layers, and like I still do make mistakes. Like I still do. I'll be drawing on the wrong layer. You know, we all do that. But and right here I'm detailing. Right here I'm starting the detailing on her torso there, and still I'm doing the same thing. It's the same brush as always, and you will see a little bit of smudging here too. But I try not to smudge everything into obliteration, into complete smoothness, because that's something I do too much of sometimes. I tend to smudge too much, you know, like smooth things out a little bit too much. So I'm trying to control that. I'm trying to hold back. Like you can see on her face, I'm fairly happy with these brush strokes here, because I managed to stop myself from smudging everything into perfection. I'm a little bit Asperger's, I think. So you know, I like perfection, but in this one here, I'm trying to stop that from happening. And anyway, here you can see the stack is shaping up. The queen, the dancer, the wine, the alternate hand. Well, no, that's this hand here. The alternate hand hasn't been made yet. So and the background here. You will see this layer I'm going to color, and I actually kept the original black and white layer in the PSD file. You can see that if you get the PSD file, you can see. And you should, if you're getting this video, you should be able to have the PSD file as well. If not, please contact me and let me know. Here you can see some streaks that are still left from the original that first dotty brush that I used, which I'm not using anymore, but I'm I'm trying to keep those little details. So although in this case, on this foot here, they might disappear. I'm not sure. I don't remember yet. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's no big deal. Yeah, they're disappearing. I smudged them out, but the principle is still the same. The principle is that, and also you can use selection like you see here. Uh, Select and then smudge towards the edge to sharpen some edges, because you don't want everything. Again, you don't want everything to be streaky and brushy. You want to have some sharp edges. You want to have some soft edges. You want to have some really broken edges, and you want to have some even invisible edges. Like I don't know if we have any example of an invisible edge in this. Maybe we could say this is an invisible edge between the upper thigh and the lower leg here. That could be called an invisible edge when the viewer knows that there's an edge there, but it kind of disappears in the shadow. That's one way that you can do. That's another way you can do it. And the same thing here. This edge is disappearing into shadow. This edge is disappearing into shadow here. Stuff like that. You want to vary your edges. That's not just have everything the same. Variation is the ticket. And here you can see some nice brushy artifacts that are still left. I'm probably gonna accidentally or purposely smudge most of them out. Yep, right there. There they go. But anyway, I still have some left here. You see, that's the thing. That's the principle behind the thing is, uh, if you can just stop yourself from smudging 100% everything, then you will have a certain percentage of the painting will still have that nice quality. Like, it's extra hard for me on anatomy because I want anatomy to look super smooth and nice, but it's easier for me it's easier for me to leave these brushstrokes in the background here. You'll still see them very clearly in the end. But now I'm working on the dress, or you can't call it a dress really, but the outfit, the dancer's outfit. And you can see how things are slowing down here. Like progress was really fast in the beginning, but now it's a little bit slower. But of course, as things slow down, you can just put on some nice music or watch a cooking video or somebody iron forging or making a mud hut. For me, that seems to make time go faster. It gets me in the zone a bit more than just not listening to any music or not having anything on YouTube. I like having Netflix or YouTube running on the side while I'm working. That's just me. It's not everybody. Here I'm showing you the brush, and I went back to, that's the reference I'm going to be using. I went back to the circular brush, but I removed the pressure sensitivity. So here I'm just color picking different shades of gray, and obviously these are all too bright, but I'm going to darken them globally. Like I'm going to darken them with a bigger brush later. And that's another thing I really love using all the time is this locking the transparency here, which I do on all my layers. Once a layer is finished, I lock the transparency, temporarily unlock it, but always try to get the lock back on again because it works like a layer mask. It's just nice. It's a good habit to have. And so when I'm done here, moving them a little bit, and that's also nice when you have them on a separate layer like that. I'm going to be naming this layer coins in a minute. Right there. And then sometimes if you need to, like here I'm doing detailing, but you can see I've already darkened the coins on the right hand side here. And now I'm using a gradient remap or remap gradient or whatever it's called. You can find it up here in image image editing. Yeah, you can post a video and go frame by frame. You can see where that is. But anyway, I have a bunch of now. I'm using it on the skin there, and I'm going to use. I'm using it everywhere. So I'm. This is where it really speeds up if you have everything on a separate layer. But I didn't have some. I didn't have the red on a separate layer, and I didn't have the gray and the gold on a separate layer. So I had to do some selecting there. But it's and you can post a video also if you want to see the exact colors I use for the gold there. But it's fairly self-explanatory and easy. I mean, gold is kind of brownish in the dark parts and yellowish in the light parts, So, and then you just got to take care. There's some transitional color in between the brightest yellow and the darkest brown. That it shouldn't go too orangey in the transitional color. So, but if you get the PSD, you can color pick from there, or you can see. But anyway, this is the column I'm working on right here. So it has gold details. It's a red and gold column, and those indentations have a gold leaf on them or something like that, gold paint. And so that's what I tried to do there. And I used the fade option again. I put a heavy stroke for the shadow on that gold leaf, and then I used the fade to dial it in perfectly. Now you can see the skin colors here aren't that great at the moment. They're okay, but they're not finished yet. So what's going to happen here, and here I'm going to be working on her headdress, but I'm going to talk about the skin. What has to happen here is you have to go in and colorize separately the shadows. You have to work a little bit more. It takes a little bit more work to finish the skin. The gold is easy to do this way, and the red parts are easy to do this way. They're already finished. Gradient remap, boom, done. But the skin needs a little bit more work, and you'll see later. Actually, you might not see, but this area here, from the ear lobe to the cheek to the nose, a bit more reddish. Obviously, the lips are red. It's makeup. If you're not sure what colors a girl's face should be with makeup on, you can just check out some makeup videos. But anyway, that's fairly self-explanatory. Sometimes there's a bluish tint here. The eyeballs should be gray. You should use gray and to colorize the eyeballs. Just to remove this warm brown color, which is here now. You can also, depending on what the color of the light is, you can remove some of the saturation from these highlights if you want. That's another thing you can do. You can increase the redness in the shadows sometimes. Along the edges here between the light and the shadow, you can add some redness, orangey redness. That's the blood flow in the upper layer of the skin, which has that effect on the color. So those are a few things that you'll see happening later. Yeah, finishing the headdress. The headdress is on a separate layer. And then when you want to do a shadow underneath something that you put on a separate layer, you just make another layer, and that's a shadow layer. But then when you are done with the top part, like jewelry, you can plop that down onto the shadow layer. But don't put those both down to the skin layer, because then you won't be able to move this around. Right now, you can move this jewelry around very freely, left, right, up, down, or resize, reshape it, or add stuff to it, or erase parts of it, very, very easily. Here I'm adding some glow, which is also going to be another layer. Which I just called glow. And then, some of this I'm painting on her skin, because if I hadn't been sure that I was going to keep it, I might have put the skin color, the orangey skin color on a layer too, but I knew I wanted to keep it. So I just painted that straight on the skin. But the little balls are on a separate layer, and the glow is on a separate layer. So I could move the balls around. I could move the glow around if I wanted. Yeah, this part needs to be darker. And so now I'm just painting with the appropriate, like I said before, warming up. You see that this part is warmer than this part here. So it's just a matter of, if you're not sure, here you see I've added highlights also in the shadow areas. This is a mask I'm working on right now. And I'm going to use fade right there, fade. I put a heavy stroke inside of that selected area, and then I faded it in and out. So some highlights here. There's been, not 100% overpainted, but I would say like 50-60% overpainted on top of that gradient remap that I did. You can see the face here also. You can see the nose is redder now, the cheeks are redder, the ear is redder. This area is a bit redder, and she has some makeup. So now that has been adjusted. But I left, this is still the color from the gradient remap. So because I like this is kind of a cooler, which gives an impression of cooler bounce light from somewhere else in the room bouncing, behind her, behind the camera maybe. And it's nearing the end. Just painting some more details. I like to try auto contrast as well. Here it is, that's finished. I like to try auto contrast on every single layer. I like to try to not forget to do that. Uh, it's just a test. You always try auto contrast on every layer that you have. Uh, if you don't like it, you don't like it, just undo. But sometimes it looks good or gives you new ideas. So that's one thing. That's another little trick that I do, auto contrast. After I saved this, I adjusted the dancer's left hand a little bit. I lifted it into view there, like this. You can see I lifted it up there, like she's gripping the other end of this outfit part there. It was just for compositional purposes. I didn't. Yeah, I accidentally got this very dark and vertical straight line here, which I didn't like at all. So I lifted her hand up here to fill that out. You'll see. Thanks for your support and see you next month.